believe that people can hurt you, that words, actions, rejection can break you. That is the illusion that has controlled your entire life. Every day you react to others. You defend yourself. You withdraw. You hope for approval or fear rejection. You call it being human. Carl Jung called it psychological imprisonment. Pause now. Place one hand on your chest. Do you feel that tension? That isn't protection. It's the armor you wear because you believe you'd be vulnerable without it. In the next few minutes, I will not only show you how this belief controls your life, but also how you can use this insight to become untouchable, not cold, not closed off, but free. You will stand up today as a different person. The truth is, no one has ever had the power to hurt you. What hurts you is not what happens. It is your interpretation, your shadow, your unconscious wounds waiting for triggers. Jung recognized that every emotional reaction to other people is a mirror, an echo from your past. Every time a comment hits you, you unconsciously activate an old injury. You just don't notice it. You think the other person has power over you, but they are only pressing a button you installed yourself, often years ago, often in childhood. Imagine someone criticizes your work. Immediately, something rises up in you. Anger, maybe. Shame. The urge to justify yourself or strike back. You believe this person hurt you. But here is the disturbing truth. That person merely touched a wound that already existed. Jung called these wounds the shadow, all the repressed parts of your psyche, the beliefs about yourself you don't want to see, not good enough, not lovable, not valuable. These beliefs lie beneath the surface, and other people are like sonar. They show you where your wounds are. This means no one inflicts new wounds on you. They only activate old ones. And as long as those old wounds remain untreated, you remain a puppet. Every interaction pulls invisible strings. Every word can make you dance. Think of the last times you felt hurt. Was it really what was said? Or was it what you thought about it? The meaning you assigned? The story you told yourself? Someone says, "You're too sensitive," and suddenly something collapses inside you. But those words have no objective power. They are sound waves, information. Your reaction doesn't come from outside. It comes from a part of you that believes those words are true, or that is ashamed they might be true. This is the first liberation, realizing that your pain does not come from others. It comes from you, from unintegrated parts of your psyche, from beliefs you never questioned, from identities built on shaky foundations. Close your eyes for a moment. Think of someone who hurt you. Feel where it shows up in the body, chest, stomach, throat. Breathe into that place. What belief about yourself is being activated? Not about the other person, about you. This is not an exercise in self-blame. It's the opposite. It is reclaiming your power. As long as you believe others can hurt you, you give them control over your mood, your self-worth, your life. Jung called this projection. You give others responsibility for your inner experience. Here's where it gets interesting. Jung discovered something most people never understand. Every strong emotional reaction to another person is an invitation to self-knowledge. If someone makes you angry, your anger shows you something about you. A part you don't accept, a boundary you can't set, a fear you won't face. The people who trigger you the most are your greatest teachers. Not because they are wise, but because they show you where your work is, where your shadow is still unconscious, where you are not yet free. Imagine someone calls you selfish, and it hits you like a punch. Why? If you truly knew you weren't selfish, you would smile and move on. The reaction shows. Part of you fears it might be true, or part of you learned that selfishness is the worst thing. Now you're fighting a judgment that doesn't even come from outside. It comes from you. This means you are not the victim of other people. You are the victim of your own unconscious patterns, your beliefs, your unhealed wounds. And that is the best news of all, because you can't control people, but you can transform your inner world. Practically speaking, the path to invulnerability does not run through thicker walls, more distance, or fewer feelings. It runs through the shadow, through conscious integration of what is hidden within you. Jung developed a process for this: shadow work. It means looking at the parts of you reject most, the traits you hate in others, the fears you run from, the beliefs that quietly steer your life, and not fighting them, but integrating them. An example: you react intensely whenever someone ignores you. Immediately you feel invisible, unimportant. Shadow work doesn't ask, "Why is this person like that?" It asks, "Which part of me believes I'm only important when others pay attention to me?" Maybe it's the child in you who had to fight for attention, who learned that their worth depends on approval. That part is still active, still at the wheel, and every time someone doesn't respond immediately, it takes over, writing the story of rejection and meaninglessness. But when you see this part, really see it, when you understand where it comes from and you meet it directly and say, "I see you. You were right back then, but you're wrong today," it starts to lose its power, not overnight, but step by step. Take a sheet of paper now. Write down a situation in which you felt hurt. Under it, the story I tell myself about it. Then, the belief about myself that gets activated. Be brutally honest. No one but you will see it. This is not pleasant. Notice the resistance. Your mind will want to say, "That's too simple. That can't be the whole truth." Or, "But that person really was cruel." Both thoughts can be true, and both can be distractions. Breathe through the discomfort. The people in your life are not your enemies. They are mirrors. Imperfect, distorted mirrors sometimes, but mirrors. And what you see in them, what bothers you, what hurts you, is always also a part of your own psyche. Jung called this the projection of the shadow. This doesn't mean there is no real bad behavior. Abuse is real, manipulation is real, cruelty is real. But your emotional reaction, your vulnerability, the depth of the pain, is determined by what already exists within you. Two people hear the same criticism. One is devastated for days. The other reflects briefly and moves on. What's the difference? Not the words, not even the intention. The difference is the inner landscape, the wounds, the beliefs, the integrated or unintegrated shadow. Stand up, go to a mirror, look yourself in the eyes and say out loud, "No one can hurt me." Feel what happens. Does a part of you believe it, or does everything in you rebel? That reaction shows you how much work still lies ahead. Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming a whole person, not perfect, whole. That means integrating all parts, the anger you suppress, the fear you hide, the neediness you deny, the grandiosity you're ashamed of. It all belongs to you, and as long as you fight it, it has power over you. When someone triggers your hidden anger, you explode or implode. When someone touches your hidden neediness, you become clingy or withdraw. When someone activates your hidden shame, you fall apart or attack. All automatic, all unconscious, all controlled from the outside. But when you know these parts, when you've accepted them, when they no longer live in the shadow, but in the light of your awareness, they lose their charge. Someone can touch your sore spot and you feel it, but you don't react automatically. You choose. That is freedom, not the absence of pain, but the absence of being controlled by pain, not the absence of triggers, but the ability to be triggered and still respond consciously instead of reacting unconsciously. In the next few days, you'll notice something. Someone will say or do something that normally knocks you off course, and you'll have a second between stimulus and reaction. In that second lies your power. In that second, you can ask, what in me is being activated right now? That isn't cold. It isn't indifferent. It's the opposite. So present, so conscious, that you no longer live on autopilot, no longer the sum of your wounds, but a person who knows their wounds and still chooses. Jung said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Most people look outward all their lives, seeking the cause of their pain in others, in circumstances, in injustices. And yes, all of that exists, but fixating on it is a prison. The moment you look inward, is the moment transformation begins, not because everything suddenly becomes easy, but because you become the place where change is possible. You can't change others, but you can transform yourself, your reactions, your assigned meanings, your inner structures. Sit down, breathe in deeply. As you exhale, allow yourself to feel whatever is there: anger, sadness, fear, shame. Name it. This is anger. Not "I am angry," but "this is anger flowing through me." Do you feel the difference? You are not your emotion. You are the space in which it appears. This is the core of Jung's teaching. You are not your ego, not your wounds, not your story. You are the awareness that can observe all of it. From that awareness, you cannot be hurt, because being hurt means identifying with something that is being attacked. If you identify with your worth and someone attacks it, you are wounded. If you identify with your performance and someone criticizes it, you are destroyed. If you identify with your role and someone questions it, you are lost. But if you know all of that is constructed, masks you wear, not who you are, then those things can be attacked and you remain untouched. Not because you talk yourself into it, but because you deeply understand. That is not me. Most people live their whole lives in a false identity. Jung called it the persona, the mask we show the world. The successful person, the good person, the strong person, the loving person. All roles, all constructs, and each of these roles can be injured. But behind the persona is the self, the true unchanging center of your being. It was there before your wounds. It will be there after you heal them. And it cannot be touched by what others say or do. It can only be obscured by your identification with the persona. Think of a moment when you were completely present, perhaps in nature, in a creative flow, in deep connection. In that moment, you were not your wounds, not your stories. You simply were. That is the self. The journey to invulnerability is the journey back to this self, not through repression, not through hardness, but through integration, consciously accepting all parts, healing wounds not by ignoring them, but by fully feeling them and then letting them go. Jung developed the technique of active imagination. You engage with an inner part, the part that feels hurt, and ask it, "What do you need? What do you fear? What do you believe about me?" Then you listen, not with the intellect, but with your whole being. Try it now. Close your eyes. Imagine the part of you that feels hurt most easily. Maybe an image appears, maybe a feeling, maybe a younger self. Ask this part, "What do you need from me?" And wait. The answer won't come in words. It comes as knowing. Maybe that part says, "I need you to stop hiding me," or "I need you to stop hating me," or "I need you to protect me by setting boundaries, not by building walls." Whatever comes, take it seriously. This isn't fantasy. It's the voice of your unconscious self. The practice of invulnerability has 3 pillars. First, awareness. You must learn to recognize your triggers before they take you over. Second, integration. You must heal the wounds being activated. Third, presence. You must learn to act from the self, not from the persona. For awareness, keep a trigger journal. Each time you feel hurt, write down the situation, your reaction, and the belief that was activated. After 2 weeks, you'll see patterns, the same wounds again and again. Those are your areas of work. For integration, choose one wound, a belief like, "I'm not enough," "I'm too much," or "I'm alone." Investigate where it came from, what event planted it. And then, this is crucial, give that part of you what it needed back then, not from outside, but from yourself. If the child in you believed it wasn't enough because it wasn't seen, then see it now, consciously, in meditation, in imagination. Tell that part, "I see you. You are enough. You are always enough." And mean it. Feel it. This isn't an affirmation. It's parenting your inner child. For presence, practice the pause between stimulus and response. Someone says something. Before you answer, breathe. 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, ask, is this my response or my wound's response? Then choose. The words might be the same, but they come from awareness, not automatism. These practices aren't comfortable. They will confront you with parts you don't want to see, with pain you avoided, with uncomfortable truths. Your mind will say, this is too much. This isn't necessary. Other people are the problem. That's normal. That's resistance. Breathe through it. What frightened you wasn't horror, it was the beginning of your liberation. The fear you felt is the signal that something real is waking up in you. You can't remain unconscious anymore. You've seen that your vulnerability doesn't come from outside, that the power was always within you. Understand this. Invulnerability doesn't mean feeling no pain. It means not being controlled by it. It doesn't mean being indifferent. It means being so present that you can choose how you respond. It doesn't mean having no wounds. It means healing them so they no longer run your life. Jung spent his life studying the human psyche, and his central insight was this: the path to wholeness goes through the shadow, through what you reject, what you fear, what you label, not me. All of that is you, and as long as you fight it, you are fragmented, and fragments can be hurt. But when you are whole, when you have integrated all parts, when nothing lurks in the shadow that can control how you feel, you stand in your center. And from there, nothing can knock you over. People can disappoint you. Life can be brutal, but you remain you. The next days will be decisive. You will be triggered, guaranteed. And in that moment, you have a choice. Do you react as always, giving the other person power over your mood? Or do you pause, breathe, ask, what is this showing me about me, and respond consciously? This is not a one-time exercise. It is a practice for the rest of your life. Shadow work never ends because life constantly brings new mirrors, new people, new situations, new triggers. But with every integrated part, you become freer. With every healed wound, you become steadier. With every conscious moment, you become more yourself. Stand up now. Place both hands on your heart. Feel the heartbeat. That is life in you. Untouched by opinions, untouched by judgments, untouched by what was yesterday or will be tomorrow. That is your center. From here, you can act. From here, you are untouchable. This transformation has already begun. You can't be reactive without awareness anymore. You can't blame someone without knowing it's a question directed at yourself. The decision lies before you, conscious integration or conscious stagnation. In the next 24 hours, choose one person who has hurt you, not to forgive them, not to save the relationship, but to ask, which wound in me was touched? Write it down. Then ask that wound, what do you need from me to heal? And give it, not from the other person, from yourself. You are not the victim of your past. You are not the victim of other people. You are the creator of your response, the shaper of your inner world, the only person who can truly hurt or heal you. That isn't a burden. It's the greatest freedom there is. Jung said, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. That choice is available in every moment, in every interaction, every trigger, every pain. Do you choose to lose yourself, or do you choose to find yourself? The truth is simple and disturbing at the same time. Nothing and no one will ever hurt you again, not because the world suddenly becomes gentle, but because you learned that hurt is an inner matter, that your power always lay in your response, that your freedom rests in your awareness. This is not an end. It is a beginning, the beginning of a life no longer controlled from the outside, where you no longer wait for others to treat you right so you can feel good, where you have taken responsibility for your inner experience. It won't be easy. It will be the hardest thing you've ever done, to look into the shadow, to feel the wounds, to take responsibility. But it is also the most liberating, because every step inward is a step out of the prison. Answer the call of your true self, waiting to be discovered, waiting to become whole, waiting to finally be free from the tyranny of opinions, judgments, rejection. You are already complete. You only have to remember. Begin today.